But first, the cha-ching that changed, or more importantly, did not change hands in the wake of the thrilling end to Saturday night's game at the LA Coliseum between Utah and Southern Cal. An ending that had Trojans head coach Lane Kiffin saying, quote, "I hope Trojan fans didn't throw away their tickets." Presumably, Kiffin was not referring to their ticket stubs to get into their seats in LA. You might remember what happened in the final 8 seconds. Utah, an 8.5-point underdog, trailing by 3, attempting a game-tying field goal.
41 yards. Coleman Peterson. The kick is blocked, and USC will run to the house with an incredibly dramatic win. Torn Harris. There is a flag down. There is a flag down at the 40-yard line of USC.
I would love to hear what they're saying to each other in that officials' huddle.
Well, the call was unsportsmanlike conduct, a celebration on the sideline for USC to be enforced on the ensuing kickoff, of course. No time left, no kickoff, no indication on the field the touchdown had been scored. Briefly, the stadium scoreboard said the TD had counted.
Unsportsmanlike conduct on the USC bench. By rule, will define that penalty. The game is over.
And that camera view we have is a great, that was exactly what it was a sideline violation. As soon as the kick was blocked, the whole team exploded.
No on-field indication of a TD, but the celebration penalty did not cancel the TD. But upstairs, according to the Los Angeles Times, the stats crew told the scoreboard operator to negate the TD, so the score reverted in length, at least, to a 3-point USA victory. Now, a win is a win unless you're betting, and thousands of people were betting. 2 hours later, the Pac-12 issued a statement clarifying the score as a 9-point USA win, and for those in Las Vegas, a Trojan cover. In the meantime, sportsbook by sportsbook, there was tumult and chaos in Vegas. The MGM Mirage Sportsbook said they lost over $100,000 paying first on the Utah winning tickets and then on the USC winning tickets. Looking for understanding in the house in Vegas is similar to seeking sympathy for the devil, but that ball of confusion, both in LA and Vegas, still resonating today. Let's say hello to sports handicapper R.J. Bell, joining us from Las Vegas. Chad Millman, the editor-in-chief of ESPN, the magazine, also the author of the book, The Odds, 1 Season, 3 Gamblers, and the Death of Las Vegas. Gary Klein joins us on the phone, the Los Angeles Times reporter who covers the USC Trojans, and much of his reporting I just recounted in the post-game moments. Gary, let me begin with you. Anything from the Pac-12 on the way that they believe they handled the situation Saturday night into Sunday morning?
Well, nothing new on it. I think that the fact that really this started in terms of the conference getting involved when USC's radio broadcasters left the stadium, happened to run into the officials and ask them, why the touchdown was taken down. And their reaction, almost in unison, according to the broadcasters, was, "What? What do you mean?" So that kind of started the ball rolling, and I think the Pac-12 has been scrambling since to kind of, make sure that their message is out that this was a clarification, not as many people reported overturning the score. Of course, that does nothing to alleviate, as you mentioned, the tumult that's been going on in Nevada and with bookmakers.
All right, RJ, what was going on in Vegas in those hours?
Well, I tell you, it was amazing. I was actually at the MGM, and what happened the first 2 hours after the game, it was normal. Utah covered, USC didn't. But then as the score was changed, you had a very different reaction in different sports books. Some books were saying, no, the change in score doesn't matter, we're not going to acknowledge that, and thus Utah was still being paid. In other books, USC, the new score was being acknowledged, and USC was being paid after Utah was paid. So it was really a crazy scene.
So, Chad, how does that work? You've spent a lot of time around this industry. How are the rules set?
Well, each individual book has their own set of house rules, and this is something that maybe the Nevada Gaming Commission needs to think about clarifying and making broader rules that all the books follow. But each book has their own set of house rules, and that's the most important phrase in this controversy here is house rules, because as RJ said, at the Mirage they have different rules than they have at Caesars, and they have different rules at Hilton, and so each book was going through its own process of deciding how to pay out. I know at the Hilton they say they will honor any score change by the end of that day of the game. So they were paying out the Utah Utah tickets at first, and then they were paying out the USC tickets. Whereas at Caesars, they don't overturn the score. They don't honor the overturned score. They go by whatever was listed on the scoreboard or a credible news source within 5 or 6 minutes after the game. So they paid the Utah tickets, but not the USC tickets. So house rules and sort of those things that everyone ignores because they think, when am I going to get caught up in a controversy like this? That's what people really need to be thinking about and paying attention to.
So now some folks, RJ, I understand, had lodged complaints with the gaming authorities. Where does that stand?
Well, you know, I really am not exactly sure how every complaint is going, but in my opinion, I think Nevada and Vegas did a great job here. Fact is that paying Utah the first 2 hours was a no-brainer. Starting to pay USC after, I thought, was generous, because a lot of the house rules allowed them not to, and a lot of places still did. So they were paying on Utah
tickets. We hear the adjective generous
and
applied to the house.
Well, remember now, it's public relations, so it's a cost benefit. But you actually have the stations group in town. They're paying both USC and Utah, and that clearly is a public relations very positive.
Gary, it certainly sounds like Lane Kiffin knew exactly what the heck was going on, the subtext, when he said, I hope everybody held on to their tickets.
Well, you know, you can't read his mind. I think on one level you could say, you know, he was sending that message out to USC fans just because of the way the game ended and was such a crazy ending, and maybe it would be something to remember. But you know, as much as coaches, as much as conference officials, and everyone else tries to distance themselves from the fact that that there is gambling and millions of dollars are gambled on college sports, you'd have to be naive to think that that they certainly don't know, you know, what's riding on certain outcomes.
Well, you led me exactly to my next point, and I'll just recite what San Diego in basketball last season, Tulane back in '85, BC 1980, 96 in football, Arizona State back in '94, Headache Smith, Northwestern hoops 94, 95, and I'm not even sure this is close to a complete list. So Chad, we're as Gary mentioned, we're jerking out into the sunlight something that everybody knows is right there at the edge of the shadows.
Well, yeah, but there's nothing that the NCAA can do about it based on this one particular incident, and they're aware of what's going on, and the NCAA actually does a very good job of going out and being proactive and educating the student athletes about what's happening and the dangers of gambling. I've spent a lot of time talking to people at the NCAA about what they're doing and the efforts they make, and I've spoken to players about it. You know, this is one of those things where the gambling isn't going to go away. And the NCAA knows that. So all they can do is educate. What this does is just remind people that it's out there and in big numbers, and that it's a driver of a lot of interest in football, not just college football, but all of sports. And that's something that they can't get away from, so you just sort of have to accept it and move on.
RJ?
Well, I think, like we said, the estimate is that 1% of gambling on sports happens in Nevada, 99% happens elsewhere with no regulation. And to me, the Nevada bettors were benefited greatly from the regulation. Like I said, I think they came out okay. The online bettors, not so much. Without the regulation, the other 99%, what typically happened online was they actually revoked the payout. They took the money back that the Utah bettors received. They ended up paying out the USC bettors. But here's where the conspiracy theorists are having a field day, is there was a disproportionate amount of action on Utah. So by switching the online books to paying USC, that was a net win for them. And there's really no one to complain to in that case. And that's 99% of the unregulated business.
Well, it's a fascinating story. And if you hold on to your tickets, eventually it was resolved. RJ Bell, Chad Millman, Gary Klein. Gentlemen, thanks so much. A fascinating story both in the micro and the macro. Next, from the thousands of dollars at stake.